Okay, good morning. My name is Russ Fitzpatrick. Today is Monday Mastermind, April 30th, 2012. It's 10:03 as we're about 25 seconds behind schedule. We're looking forward to a great mastermind today. Love to hear some text chat and some conversations about the content of today. As I mentioned just before we hit record, I've studied 4 of Michael Gerber's books and just bought a 5th last night called the E-Myth Enterprise, and started to read that last night to good, I guess I would say that I would give it good feedback already because I'm already into the 2nd or 3rd chapter. But regardless, the E-Myth Revisited specifically can be related to the residential real estate business, whether you're a broker or an associate, and I hopefully will do it justice today. And we don't consider this to be a replacement of going out and buying the book, especially the E-Myth Revisited or the E-Myth Mastery course. We just recommend that you do look further into this content if the material is interesting to you. For the past 10 years, we've looked at this tree as a big part of our philosophy in the residential real estate business, that Think and Grow Rich plants the roots firmly in an individual associate or a broker owner who's ambitious. The E-Myth Revisited forms the branches of that tree by creating the structure and systems integration that they need to professionally represent themselves in the marketplace as an entrepreneur. And then Good to Great, which was written by Jim Collins, is really the fruit of the labor after the roots and the branches take hold and grow. We recommend that Good to Great is kind of the next evolution of learning that's necessary for brokers and or associates who look to take their business to the next level. So in that order, we recommend these 3 manuscripts as a part of our core ideology or philosophy. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, highly recommended. The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and then ultimately Good to Great by Jim Collins. And we've used that tree for almost a decade now as a kind of the fundamentals of all of our philosophies moving forward. What is the E-Myth? The E-Myth is the entrepreneurial myth that would lead you to guess or believe that entrepreneurs are the people who start companies. But that's a myth. In actuality, it's usually a technician that starts a company. And some of our brokers online are fantastic technicians in the real estate business, but now they're required to transition into an entrepreneurial role. For instance, a disenchanted assistant working for a real estate agent says, I can do that job. And they go out and they say, I'm going to just replace my realtor and I don't need him anymore. I'm going to be a realtor and I don't need to be his assistant anymore. So that he or she transitions from being a technical assistant, a technician, and now she wants to go ahead and become that realtor. That's one example where the E-Myth might bite her. She might not know that the job is different once she becomes a realtor than when she's an assistant, or he. The skilled, ambitious realtor is working for a broker, and they're a good quality realtor, and they think that, hey, I don't need this broker in my life. I'm going to go out and be a broker now. And that myth is that it's the same job, that being a realtor, because you're good at it, is the exact same job as if you were going to be a broker, and that could not be further from the truth. If you could imagine if you were a chef in a restaurant and you were a great chef and you considered your food and the combination of recipes that you bring to the table for that restaurant to be the reason that those consumers are inside of that restaurant, and then you branch out on your own and go open a restaurant and you don't realize that there's advertising and marketing and the service side of the business, and you don't realize that the decorum and the style of the restaurant plays heavily, or the location and the expenses of the leaseholds is a big part of it, or even training your waiters and waitresses and training your chefs to do what you do well. And the last analogy in the E-Myth really came on a personal level from some advice I got from a master plumber in Broward County, Florida. Actually, I'm sorry, he was a master electrician, Carrie's father took me aside one day and said, you know that the worst business owners are typically the best electricians, and the best electricians many times don't make good master electrical contractors. And the reason for that was that once that plumber, let's go back to the analogy of the plumber or the electrician, he's mastered the skill set necessary to be a good technical plumber. He's mastered the skill set to be a good technical electrician. Then he goes and opens an electrical contracting firm, and he has to now train others to do what he did. But that's not necessarily his skill set. Just because he was an exceptional electrician doesn't make him the best person to manage the books or to create operating manuals or to bid jobs. And this electrical contractor that gave me this advice a long time ago said the fact that you're so good at your job means that you might be doing a lot of it unconsciously, or that you might be someone who really just developed these skills to be a great realtor, a great electrician, a great plumber over time. And that ultimately the myth is that now that you're going to become a broker, or now that you're going to become the electrical contractor, that somehow you're going to be able to transfer those skills onto other people, and they're going to be able to reproduce the efficiency and acumen that you've created over time. And that's usually not the case. And some of you online are saying, well, what's the problem with that, Russ? That's the entrepreneurial American way. Well, the problem is that the skills needed to be a technician are significantly different than the skills needed to be an entrepreneur. So Michael Gerber's definition of who is an entrepreneur is probably the most succinct definition of all time of this strange word called entrepreneurship or entrepreneurialism. Entrepreneurialism can be Jackie Vacca in Huntington Beach, California. It could be Anna Jeffers in Boston. It could be Michael Bray in El Paso, Texas. Entrepreneurial work is defined as the person, the individual, that creates a vision that will predictably attract customers. Read that sentence. The person who can predictably attract and keep customers is an entrepreneur. So if you focus on the attraction and retention of customers, then you are an entrepreneur. If you focus on the fulfillment of the relationship once those customers are attracted and kept, then you are most likely a manager. Or if you're acting on the behalf of the entrepreneur or the manager and you're actually executing the tasks that keep the promises that you made to your customers, then you're a technician. So Michael Gerber focuses a lot of his energy on the beginning of his book in defining these three rules: the role of an entrepreneur, the role of a manager. And let's read that role of a manager. If the role of an entrepreneur is the person who attracts and keeps customers because he creates a compelling vision, then the role of a manager is a person who implements and supervises the systematic achievement of technical work. A person who has a place for everything and everything has its place. The manager craves order and status quo in every aspect of his business. This is a typical manager. And personality profiling leans towards this as well. You know, D's and I's versus C's and S's. Now, who is a technician? The technician is the do-it-yourselfer, the only one in any business that can do the job at hand. You know, the manager really doesn't have the skill set to efficiently perform the tasks, and the entrepreneur doesn't have the patience or wherewithal to perform the tasks. So you have to have these three components. And every one of us has all three of these personalities inside us. The entrepreneurial spirit resides deep in the heart of everyone. The manager understands on an intellectual basis that he needs to keep things in order and organize them. And then the technician resides in your heart as well, because you know if the work doesn't get done, nothing happens. And if you've ever seen a Venn diagram, you'll see this blob in the middle begin as a pie chart. So Stevie Sawyer has to be entrepreneur, manager, and technician. And as his business starts to evolve, you'll see the pie charts start to come apart or be born into two separate and distinct job descriptions. And one of the job descriptions that he'll be wearing the hat for would be that of an entrepreneur. And one of the job descriptions that he'll be wearing would be that of a technician or a manager. So eventually these overlaps of these percentages become a conflict in Stevie Sawyer's life. Eventually, when the size of his business grows, he becomes kind of tug of war between these three necessary components. I need to sell houses to make money. I need to manage and serve the policies and procedures of my brokerage to grow my business, and I need to consistently create an entrepreneurial vision that's compelling to keep joining more managers and technicians to my firm. So at the brokerage level, it becomes extremely combative, especially between 10 agents and say 35 or 40 agents that Steve Morris refers to as no man's land. No man's land is where you're too small to hire a bunch of people to do the job, and you're too big to do it all yourself, so you become in no man's land. And that same world exists for you as agents. And we're going to get into this agent conversation just as much as the broker conversation during the E-Myth. But I cannot move forward in a discussion about the principles of the E-Myth Revisited without focusing on this paragraph. I absolutely adore this paragraph from a standpoint of having been a realtor for almost 15 years and consistently been in the brokerage or brokerage management business now for almost 12. You would begin to say to yourself, Yvonne Marshall from Exit Montclair in New Jersey, where the Devils just got beat by the Flyers, you would begin to say to yourself, it's time for me to create a new life. It's time for me to challenge my imagination and to begin the process of shaping an entirely new life. See if Lillian Wasluskas from Huntington Beach, California, were to ponder that first sentence. It's time for me to challenge my imagination and begin the process of shaping an entirely new life. She may come to the conclusion that Michael Gerber and I came to, which is the best way to do that anywhere in this whole wide opportunity-filled world is to create an exciting new business. One that can give me everything I want. Could you imagine that? By challenging your imagination and beginning a process of shaping an entirely new life, by focusing on the best way to do that is to create a business entity, could that business entity give you everything that you want? Especially as you realtors think of this, one that doesn't require me to be there all the time. That's a heavy, heavy sentence right there. Could I create an entirely new vision for my career, an entirely new business opportunity, one that could give me everything I want, but one that doesn't require me to be there all the time? A business that has the potential to be stunningly unique, one that people will talk about long after having shopped in it for the very first time, and then as a result of that delightful experience will come back to shop there again and again and again because it has a special flavor to it. I wonder what that business would be. I absolutely adore that paragraph because as a residential real estate professional or a residential real estate broker, you're staring a whole wide opportunity-filled world in the face. You are looking at, an enormous financial opportunity to breathe freedom and prosperity into your life. And if you could just use that one paragraph to ponder, you might look at the opportunity differently. It's not just a job to be a realtor. You could create almost anything you want. This is the only industry I've found where there's absolutely no glass ceiling based on gender, based on education. There's no glass ceiling based on race, creed, religion, and even there's no glass ceiling based on IQ. I've watched some of the stupidest people in the world make hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in residential real estate. So it's not even, you couldn't even have an IQ barrier in this business. It's just hilarious. So if we continue along this path of Michael Gerber's interpretations, we look at the infancy stage, the technician's phase of a business. And many of you brokers are in this phase. Many of you agents are in this phase. A broker with less than 40 realtors is ultimately in the infancy phase. It's a mom and pop shop. No matter if you're in a big market or a little market, you're in the infancy technician phase of your brokerage. A realtor associate who does less than 30 or 40 deals per year, depending on price point, obviously, you could really start to build something special at 30 deals if you were doing the right size deals, but probably 40 transactions a year is about as big as an individual agent technically can get without going to the next level. Now, the path less traveled, and that's a Frost poem, the path less traveled says, do you get small again when you reach that critical point? Do you regress back to stay at 30 to 40 agents and not grow it? And if you're a real estate agent, do you just stay comfortable right there at that 20, 30, or 40 deals per year? Or do you go for broke? And the path less traveled is definitely the going for broke. To move to the mega brokerage, to move to the 100 agent shop, to move to a real estate agent that does 100 transactions a year. These are the agents that had to take the path less traveled. These three sentences at the bottom of this page say some very special things. A great technician is limited by how much work he can do himself. So if Mary in Jersey is working her tail off and she's at 30 or 40 agents or thereabout as a broker owner, she's limited by how much she can do herself. A great manager is defined by how many technicians he can supervise effectively, and an entrepreneur's boundaries are set by how many managers he can enroll into his or her vision. So I'm going to say this in our words in the real estate industry. When, as a real estate agent, you reach a point that you can no longer expand your income without staff, you will ultimately be at an impasse. You'll be at a crossroads. And you'll either concede to systems integration or you'll regress back to your lesser productive self. You have no choice. That's the point you're at. When you reach a point as a real estate agent that you can no longer expand your income without staff, you'll either concede to systems integration, you'll go ahead and concede the fact that you have to integrate systems and business formatting, or you'll be forced to regress back to your lesser productive self. And I'm going to say this to the broker owners and the agents. Let's do the top left box first before that sentence on the bottom drives an exclamation point to these two statements. When, as a real estate broker, you reach a point that you can no longer expand your associate base without staff and management, you will concede to systems integration or your brokerage will regress back to the lesser productive size. It's the exact same conflict when you're at that crossroads of the path left traveled. So I would like to challenge you to say, will I be the hero of my own life, or will that role be filled by someone else? Ultimately, it's you as the agent or you as the broker owner that has to take that personal responsibility to decide if you want to stay small or go for broke. As much a part of the transition from small to mid-size to large, business formatting and systems integration is about efficiency. So I want to get away from this concept that it's only for you if you're going to get big, because that's not true. Efficiency is about production versus labor. So efficiency is about how much money I make based on the time I put in. how much money I make versus the amount of money that I invest, or how much return I get on my energy. So when you look at a workflow like this and you say it takes an insane mind to break down the workflow of the prospecting side of our business, from the initial contact from a seller all the way through to the potential listing acquisition and closing, it's about efficiency. It's not about ego. It's not about trying to make it look fancy. It's about efficiency. What are the most efficient and pragmatic steps to take a seller from initial inquiry to closing? When you look at the 20 or 30 training modules that were created during the last decade and a half that now have opened up to become Associate Works, these training modules weren't created because we wanted to be the next Tony Robbins. These training modules were not created because we wanted to be Johnny Lowy when we grew up. We don't want to be in the training business. The training business just gives us an opportunity to pass along best practices and the most efficient systems integration. So when you see all these PowerPoints that build conversations about efficiency, it's really not just about growth. So that last sentence at the bottom, so even before business formatting or systems are about growth, they're about survival and sustainability in a real estate brokerage or in a real estate career. We believe that. I mean, you ain't going to beat me in a talking contest about this one, man. I will put systems up against intuitive actions any day of the week. When you guys go back and you're reacting to customers and you're responding to inquiries, and every buyer inquiry is different and every seller inquiry is different and every listing presentation is different, that's not how the big boys do it, guys. The big boys do it. They've got a system for everything, a place for everything, and it's transferable skills. So some of you are online, yeah, so give it to us. Give us these systems. Well, here's the sad part. We already did. AnnieMacWorks.com in the Northeast, AEM Works in Southeast, and Southeast Mortgage Works in Georgia all have these systems integrated into those Works productivity platforms. And let's give you some examples herein as to how you can use business formatting or systems integration right this minute. So Olivia says she believes me. So let's see if Olivia buys into this. Let's talk about what it would feel like to use business formatting or a system at the associate level. The word that I would write down would be called repetitious involvement. That you would be able to manage yourself or others to do the same thing over and over and over again. That is rule one of systems integration, that something is more powerful than your mood. You'll read in the E-Myth over and over and over again. Your company cannot be in the mood. Your company doesn't have a mood. You have a mood. Your company doesn't have the right to have a mood. Okay? You don't have the luxury to say, oh, it's just not my day. I don't feel like doing that today. Repetitious involvement means I'm going to do it exactly how my business dictates I do it every single time, no matter what my mood is. So let's take one of the most simple systems that you could ever create as a real estate agent. The system says, I post 5 Craigslist ads every day. That's my system. And I only post between 175 and 350 because I have found that they get the most calls, and I don't want to deal with people in the 80s or 90s anymore. I only post properties between 175 and 350. This is the formation, as rudimentary or as sophomoric as it sounds. This is the way a system is formed. I post single-family residences, and I post them only from one school district because I'm a fan of the school district. I know a lot about that school district. I know it's popular in my area, and I like to be able to brag to my buyers that I'm an expert in this area. So I only post single-family residences between 175 to 350 in one school district. I never post unapproved short sales because I don't like writing offers on unapproved short sales. So look at how this system is starting to shape up. Number one, I'm going to do it whether I'm in the mood or not. Number two, I post 5 Craigslist ads every day. Number 3, I post only between 175 and 350. I post only single family homes in one school district. I never post unapproved short sales. It's a rule, part of my system, that I post price, square footage, bedroom, and bath on every single house that I post. I would never make a post without bedrooms, bath, price, and square footage. I always post the subdivision name because I found that a couple of popular subdivision names bring a little bit more inquiries. You know, when I run the subdivision that happens to be in that school district, some buyers are looking for that subdivision, so I always post that in. I always acquire a loan analyzer from my friends at AnnieMac or my friends at AEM or my friends at Southeast Mortgage, and I put a link in to my Craigslist ad. How much would this house cost? And that little link goes right in my Craigslist ad because that can link the loan analyzer to the ad so that I'm helping the customer understand how affordable that house is when they're looking at the ad. I always post a link to the Google map to the house because I think that giving more information is better than giving less. So that's my policy. I always post 10 photos. I never want to post a house that doesn't have at least 10 photos because if you ever looked at houses on the internet, the most intriguing thing you can look at is photographs, right? Or a virtual tour. So one of my policies is I always post 10 photos. I always post a virtual tour. I always post a link to my website. I always post a link to my Realty Generator, Tiger Leads, or my iHome Leads account. I always post a link to my conversion account. I always make that a part of my policy. And then you've got a few other I always. Those I always do this is your system. Now, if you're falling asleep, it's because you might not get the fact that 2 all beef patties, special sauce, onions, cheese, lettuce on a sesame seed bun is the most lucrative business in the world. You hear it? Jim just said that. 2 all beef patties, special sauce, onions, cheese, lettuce on a sesame seed bun is the most lucrative business format in the world, right? So the whole objective here is that you'd be able to create a system that you could train someone else to do. If you can say at the end of a system, I can train that, then you've got a system. If you know it's not a transferable skill, then you can't say you've got a system. Let's do one more and we'll do it a little quicker. So what are another example of business formatting or systems integration at the associate level? Time blocking. One of the most effective systems in residential real estate nationwide in the whole wide world is time blocking. So if we're going to use the word time blocking as this system, let's say what we would do within this time. I make 10 live expiry contacts every Monday morning. Period. Even if I'm not in the mood, I do it anyway. I make calls first thing in the morning. That's part of my system. I make follow-up calls on the people that I couldn't reach between 6 and 7:30 p.m. on Monday evenings. So I'm just chunking out my little morning ritual and my evening ritual. And I've heard Steve Morris say this. Successful people are ritualistic by nature. Unsuccessful people are not ritualistic by nature. So if I were going to model successful behavior, I might want to become more ritualistic. That would be advice. I make 10 live expired calls. I make these calls first thing in the morning. I wake up and I make all my follow-up calls between 6 and 7:30 on Monday night. I send a letter out immediately to each interested party that I speak to, whether I booked an appointment or not. They get a letter from me. I only call expiries between 150 and 1 million. I don't call the 2 million and up stuff, and I don't call the below 150 stuff. But everybody's got a different system. Remember it said, should I be the hero of my own life or should I let someone else be the hero? Well, you make up your own. You're a big boy. Put your big boy pants on and make your own policy. You only call expires between 60,000 and 260, or you say Why wouldn't I call people over $1 million? You could say whatever you want to say because you're the boss. I always call single-family homes. I don't call townhouses or condos. Maybe that's not appropriate for you, but these are just ideas of a policy. I never call an exit expired. It's not worth the trouble. I call season expireds once a month. What does that mean? So in addition to my Monday mornings, I go back once a month and I call my season expireds. And season expireds I reserve for the second Saturday of each month between 9 and noon. And I use a telemarketing works script for expireds. So now I've got a system, let's just say, that I've created that becomes a transferable skill. The opening lines are spelled out, the clever conversations are spelled out, the appearing interested to their answers and asking thoughtful questions. This all becomes part of the system. And again, the system only exists or only passes muster if you can train that. Could you train it? And ultimately, if you could train it to another person, then it's a transferable skill. So I'm going to give you 5 or 6 examples, a few other examples of local realtor level systems and business formats that have been proven successful. E-Bowl follow-up system, which we trained. That's our version of the for sale by owner follow-up some of you were at a couple weeks ago. The bulletproof listing presentation. We believe that that is a transferable skill. It is a way to integrate a system into your listing presentation so that you've got a format that you're following. Pre-listing appointment preparation. There's some specific things that we should do before we go on a listing presentation. We should do them the same every single time. Listing acquisition checklist. Once I've taken a listing, is there 10 or 12 or 15 tasks that are transferable skills that I could teach someone else to do that I do after I take a listing on? That's a listing acquisition checklist would become a system. Credit coach for all my applicable consumers that have bruised credit. That could be a system for an associate. How do I present and implement concierge? That could be a system or not. We don't have a preference whether you use credit coach or concierge or not. Transaction management. To have a system from the minute I get a contract to the minute it goes to closing, a transferable skill. Most people wouldn't take the time to put it all together in one system and explain all the eventualities of that transaction management experience. And the word eventualities is a big word, but all it really means is what could happen during a transaction and what do you do if that happens? The forethought of an entrepreneur is to guess all of the eventualities so that there is a flow chart that says if this happens you do this, if this happens you do this, if this happens you go back to here. So transaction management has to be a set of guesses about what might happen, and having forethought about it is important. Pre-closing drill. You know, what starts 2 weeks before the closing and how does it escalate, how does it culminate with 24 hours prior to closing, what all's happening? How does pre-closing drill work and can you train it? Walkthrough inspection protocol. How do you do walkthrough inspections? What do you say during walkthrough inspections? What's your first response when some heated argument starts to happen at a walkthrough inspection? Post-closing drill could become one of the most important things a real estate agent ever does in past customer follow-up. Past customer follow-up and sphere of influence marketing. And I just watched Jeff Lobb, who I'm an enormous fan of, do an augmented virtual reality tour on Pickseat. And that could easily become an associate level system or business format. Now, as all these things come together, you create a vision. A couple examples at the brokerage level, the way you do your monthly sales meetings, if you have cold call clubs, if you have book clubs to study things like the E-Myth or Crucial Conversations or Think and Grow Rich, Hero Home Source could become a business format or systems integration. How you do your floor system could be a big system for a brokerage. Lead generation and conversion software like Realty Generator or Boomtown Leads or Tiger Leads or Conversion. Sponsorship residuals in itself is a unique selling proposition business format, and you need to implement systems to promote it and to get the most and best out of your associate staff. How you do your awards and recognition. We go across the country. We see some brokers don't do any awards or recognition. We see others that do it monthly. We see others that do it quarterly. And we see some brokerages that have their own annual awards and recognition banquets. So there's so many different ways of implementing a system for that. Could you ever implement a mentoring program within your brokerage? These are systems that you could do. Commercial department, first-time homebuyer seminars. If we ritualistically do a first-time homebuyer seminar once a month at our brokerage, sometimes the broker will get frustrated and say, these realtors are so lazy, they don't even participate. Well, guess what? Make it a staple. Make it a recurring, repetitious involvement thing, and they'll eventually come along. Leadership is a curse. It's called criticism, and negativity follows the leader. So what you do is you say, hey, we're going to do a first-time homebuyer seminar on the first Wednesday of every month. But then you have to do it every single month so that they'll start to buy in. And then they'll start to bring people to it. Creating a business format or integrating a system for your REO division. Short sale department. How you create your short sale department, who you use for your short sale outsourcing, or if you're going to do it yourself, is there an employee that helps them dot all the I's and cross all their T's? Do you charge for it? Do you offer transaction management services? Marketing department. Do you have a marketing department that helps them with things like postcards and flyers? Do you use a brokerage level concierge policy, or do you use an outsourced concierge like Associate Works concierge, or do you have a local vendor that does your concierge, or do you not do concierge at all? These are all decisions that a brokerage can make to format their business, and these all become ultimately recruiting and retention tools for a brokerage. Remember how the beginning of this conversation started. An entrepreneur's job is to attract and keep customers. So if you're a real estate agent on the line and you're going, what the hell does this have to do with real estate? The entrepreneurial side of your real estate career has to be a vision to attract and keep customers. If you're a broker, your vision has to be to attract and keep realtors. So let's keep on going here. As long as these systems are created, on your 17 examples here, we implemented all of these at Exit Team Realty back in the day. And somebody will go, how could you implement all of them? We've got a challenge for you at the end so you don't choke on too much opportunity that most brokerages and most agents don't starve to death on not enough opportunity. They usually choke to death or they stagnate on too much opportunity. So we've got a challenge for you at the end of today's session, and we're getting there. Tom Watson Sr. created a vision of the company called IBM. And he said it was like putting together a puzzle, but because he had created the vision before he started to build the company, that it was like you had a cheat sheet to look from. Like you had the cover of the box to look at while you were putting your puzzle together. And that vision that was created before he started his system gave him the format that he was going to follow in order to put that business together. And I'm going to issue a challenge to the brokers and the associates, because this is truly the most glorious reward. You'll know your business is destined to grow once it does your job for you. That sentence should bother some people. You'll know your real estate agent business is destined to grow once it does your job for you. Once it's attracting and keeping customers on its own, then your business can grow. Once you've pushed that boulder all the way up the hill and now it's rolling on its own, now you can stand there and watch the fruits of your labor, and you don't have to be there all the time. But to do that requires intention. Intention at the outset of the business, entrepreneurial intention, as well as a willingness No, not a willingness, a true passion for personal transformation such a process will call for. Accessing new skills, new understandings, new knowledge, and a new emotional depth and wisdom in order that you could create a business that would fulfill the promises that you make to your realtors or your customers even when you're not present. Could manage 100 listings and never be present. Could you manage 150 realtors and never be present? Well, probably not never be present, but that you're not required to be there all the time because the vision, that puzzle that you created for it, was more attractive than you. That's a hard thing for the egomaniacs in the world to think of. You mean the business that I create is better than Stevie Sawyer? That the business that I create is better than Melinda Harris? You follow me? That I'm not the only benefit to this business, because if you're the only benefit to this business, it's not a real business. It's got to be bigger than you. Okay, last couple preachy little things and then I'll give you a challenge. The entrepreneurial model. The business model that fulfills the perceived needs of a specific segment of customers. The entrepreneur asks, where is the opportunity? Then he constructs a solution to the frustration he finds among a certain group of customers. Do you think that I did that? Do you think that Carrie and I did that with Associate Works? We saw a void. We saw frustration. We saw brokers that weren't able to create enough value by contracting with just one system like Johnny Lowy, or let's say they contracted with Kevin Ahern, or maybe they contracted with this, and it was costing them $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 a year. We said, well, what if we could get banking sponsors to pay for some of this stuff, and what if we could give you a $12 a month solution rather than a $1,200 a month solution? So we said we don't need to appeal to everybody, but we believe that there's a certain number of people that run brokerages or a certain number of agents that would like this. And how will my business stand out from all the rest? Well, because it'll be free. That's a good one for, you can go all these things for free. And then if you wanted to join this upgrade, you paid $12. So you can see where we really did use this philosophy. Realtors and brokers rarely concern themselves with this. Worse yet, some brokers already think that the job has been done for them. I need to stop right there. I go into brokerages all over the country, and I sit down with a broker, and we always say the same thing. What is the reason that a real estate agent would join your brokerage? And they say, sponsorship residuals. Or they say something like, I'm a nice guy and I buy him lunch. Or I ask a realtor, what is a reason that a seller would list their house with you instead of Remax, Coldwell Banker, Century 21, ERA? And sometimes they don't have an answer. So the entrepreneurial business person has to think, how do I differentiate myself from my competitors to make the proposition that I bring to the table irresistible? And we used to train our realtors that they need to go into every listing presentation as if they're competing with the 3 top real estate companies in the area. Because if your offer doesn't stack up to the 3 top, then just close up shop, because you're going to be a loser your whole life. You've got to be better than the best in your area, and you've got to have a more attractive value proposition. In other words, don't let exit's vision for your brokerage be the only vision that you believe will win. It's not going to happen for you. Neither will it as a realtor. Don't let your broker's vision be your only vision. The entrepreneur knows that within the customer is a continuously changing want that's yearning to be satisfied. Almost done. Almost done. Business formatting is about, you could tell this is like my religion almost. Business formatting is about creating a system-driven business, not a people-driven business. It's about producing predictable results. It reduces human error and is built on impeccable job descriptions. Formulating your business is about finding out what works and finding a way to produce that result over and over and over so that your business can keep the promises that it makes to its consumers. A business format that keeps its promise, and the promise that attracts and keeps consumers. As a broker owner, a regional owner, or an agent, you need to create a vision that fills a need to attract a segment of customers over and over again, and then create the systems, put the systems in place that you can deliver the promises that you make. Creating a business organization like you were going to produce it 5,000 times. That's a weird sentence. Why would I need to produce my business format like I was going to produce it 5,000 times? Because that's the secret to why franchised businesses are more successful than independent businesses. Nationwide, franchised companies are 300% more likely to succeed than non-franchised businesses because they have a business format that they're working with. So we've got to encourage you as real estate agents to create a business format that works over and over and over. We're getting to the challenge and then we're going to wrap up. For many of you, you've been in the real estate business a long time, and sometimes hindsight is 20/20. Sometimes you can learn from the errors of your ways, and sometimes the grind, I hate this cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Sometimes the grind of working in your business prevents you from ever stopping to work on your business. And as cliche as that sounds, that, oh, you got to work on your business instead of in your business. I hate that guy because they don't even know what the hell they're talking about 80% of the time when they say it. What I'm saying to you is, you're looking back on the last year's work, but you're so busy doing this work that you don't have time to make the adjustments from the hindsight that you noticed would have been more effective. And in addition, let's be fair. Not everyone has the creative imagination to make up new systems. Not everyone has that little spark in their brain that adequately feeds their creative imagination to be committed to making new systems. But I think if you look deep inside yourself, hindsight is 20/20. But the most valuable commodity in this conversation is your forethought. That you can take a transaction and speculate in thoughtful consideration of what needs to happen so that you can create a compelling vision. Vision plus execution equals leadership. So the challenge for today is this. The challenge for you today is to take that thinking man attitude or that thinking woman attitude and apply it to your business personally today. The challenge that we're going to issue for you is to invest 2 hours this week sometime in quiet consideration of how you personally could systemize one aspect of your business. I think that if you took this challenge on at this time in your career, you've got enough hindsight to draw from, you've got enough experiences probably, that you could say which system is the most inefficient or which system is the most likely replicatable system that I could fix right now. And if I just sat down for 2 hours quiet, maybe with a pen in my hand, I could come up with a flow chart or some sort of guess about the eventualities of it to create a system for one aspect of your business. And then ultimately the challenge goes on to say, imagine if Melinda implemented one new system each month for the next 12 months. This month it seems like she's implementing Hero Home Source. And to create a system, she would need to set aside a few hours, how she's going to articulate the value proposition to her community, how she's going to articulate the Hero Home Source model to her associates, how she's going to recruit on Hero Home Source, how she's going to retain on Hero Home Source, how she's going to serve the heroes and promote Hero Home Source. So if she spends 2 hours or more sitting down and thinking about how she's going to systematize this new Hero Home Source aspect of her business, and then she did another system in June, and another system in July, and another system in August, all of a sudden, the compounded effect of those 8 or 10 or 12 new efficient systems become her business format that's more compelling than just her smiling, bubbly personality. Well, she has a great personality. She's not bad to look at either. But the problem is if she goes out into the field and she's absent from her business, her own bubbly personality is not enough to keep everyone there. So having those 12 systems implemented during the next 12 months can make Todd Glass's business in Concord or Stevie Sawyer's business very, very charismatic. So our challenge to you today in closing on the E-Myth principles is that you really might want to spend a couple minutes on those slides where we gave you some examples at the brokerage level or the associate level, and then set aside a couple hours alone in thoughtful consideration of how you could systematize one aspect of your business. I think that would be a huge thing for us to hear from you come convention time, that we made a difference for you because you've implemented some systems. And if you happen to go out and buy Michael Gerber's E-Myth and read it, please share with us your thoughts about how it may have changed your business model over the last over the time that you've read it. So please let us know if it did have an effect on you. Okay, we appreciate it. Thanks so much for being on.